Well, Jayden Daniels absolutely is writing a very strong Heisman Trophy resume, and through 6 weeks, deserves an invitation to New York.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, what's up, y'all? Welcome into Locked On LSU. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, part of the Locked On Network, your team every single day. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, you can also find us on YouTube as well. So check us out there. You can watch the podcast in addition to listening to it on your preferred podcast platform. My name is Caroline Fenton, and I am your host, as I am every single day. You can follow me on Twitter at CarolineFenton1. Also, you can follow along with the podcast for updates at Locked On LSU. But let's get into it because I felt like on yesterday's episode, which of course you can find on your preferred podcast platform and on YouTube, did a full recap of the game, just a few things that I wanted to get off my chest, how strangely officiated I thought that game was, clearing up at least my opinions or maybe some confusion about what Brian Kelly said about Major Burns and the pick six and deciding to run it into the end zone instead of just, taking it, falling on it, taking a knee. But I said yesterday, I wanted to touch on Jayden Daniels and I was going to get into it much more. And I feel like however much I talk about Jayden Daniels this week probably won't be enough because any sort of praise, all the praise that I could give him, 5 days a week's worth of praise for Jayden Daniels, I don't think is going to be sufficient because we are seeing Jayden Daniels write an incredibly strong Heisman Trophy resume. And I think that was on full display on Saturday against Missouri. I think that was on full display against Ole Miss. That's what we've seen from Jayden Daniels consistently week in and week out. And it's for a few different reasons. It's what he has done with his arm, it's what he can do with his legs. It's the fact that he takes care of the football. And four, it's the fact that he is carrying this LSU team. When we talk about Heisman, when we talk about NFL MVP, I view it as you are more valuable to your team than any other player is in any other team in the country. And I think that's the case for Jayden Daniels. That I don't think that you can point to me one other single quarterback or player in the country that has more value to its respective team. But I thought, well, I think it's easy for me to make a case for the quarterback for the team that I root for, the team that I cover. So I did some digging. I looked at the top Heisman Trophy odds for right now, or at least where Jayden Daniels kind of ranks among the rest of the Heisman Trophy candidates, and how his stats stack up. For example, I took kind of a overall pulled a bunch of different sports books. Of course, we love our friends over at FanDuel, but wanted to get kind of a general consensus of where each quarterback in college football kind of ranks and where Jayden Daniels is amongst them. Now, for the most part, Jayden Daniels ranks 6th in the rankings for Heisman Trophy odds with plus 3,000 odds to win the Heisman Trophy. Now, look, I understand Vegas is not everything. Vegas is not in the Heisman Trust. Vegas does not give out invitations to New York City at the end of the season, but that's all we really have to go off of. So Jayden Daniels currently on the sports books has the 6th best odds of winning the Heisman Trophy at plus 3,000. Jayden Daniels' stats so far through 6 weeks: has completed 132 of his 181 pass attempts. That's good for 73% completion percentage. 1,969 yards through the air, 19 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Adding on top of that, his addition with his legs, 75 rushing attempts, 422 yards on the ground for 4 touchdowns. So let's look at how that stacks up with the rest of Heisman Trophy caliber candidates. Now, Drake Maye has the 5th best odds right above Jayden Daniels. Drake Maye, North Carolina quarterback, has plus 1,600 odds to win the Heisman Trophy. He has completed 129 of his 179 pass attempts. That's good for 72%. Kind of along the same lines as Jayden Daniels, 73%. Good for 1,629 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Well, through the air, I don't think that even comes close to comparing what Jayden Daniels has done. If you compare that to his 19 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And also, on top of it, Drake Maye doesn't have nearly the same contribution on the ground that Jayden Daniels does. Drake Maye, 52 rush attempts for 174 yards. So when I look at it, when I look at the odds, I say, well, Jayden Daniels has done more. Statistically, has done more than Drake Maye. Dillon Gabriel, quarterback at Oklahoma, has the fourth best odds at plus 1,200. He's completing 72% of his passes, along the same lines as Drake Maye's 72, Jayden Daniels 73. 1,878 yards. I mean, that man can sling it. I think we saw that all on full display against Texas this past weekend. 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, really solid stats through the air, 43 rush attempts for 208 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, Dillon Gabriel has solid, really solid stats. I mean, a really good year so far for Dillon Gabriel. I feel like, I'm going, off the rails here, but Dillon Gabriel, what he's been doing at Oklahoma since this past weekend, since they beat Texas, before then, I don't think that he was getting enough credit for what he was doing. I feel like I'm guilty of this, and maybe the college football public is guilty of kind of writing Oklahoma off after a pretty bad season last year. But what Dillon Gabriel and Brent Venables are doing in Norman, Oklahoma, it's impressive. And now that was seen on full display in Dallas over the weekend. So Dillon Gabriel, solid stats, but still not as many touchdown passes as Jayden Daniels. Still less than half as many rush yards as Jayden Daniels has. Let's look at number 3, Bo Nix, which crazy world that we live in, that Bo Nix has the third best odds to win the Heisman. And now that Auburn's struggling at the quarterback position, Bo Nix has plus 600 odds to win the Heisman Trophy, completing 80% of his passes. Very impressive. 1,459 yards. Still 500 yards shy of what Jayden Daniels has done through the air. 15 touchdowns and 1 interception. So he has 1 fewer interception, which is crazy that we've gone from the Bo Nix throws picks era to now taking care of the football a lot better. But still 4 touchdowns shy of what Jayden Daniels has put up. And again, Bo Nix, not even slightly as big of a threat on the ground. The Jayden Daniels is 87 rush yards and a touchdown. In comparison, Jayden Daniels 422. What Bo Nix has done on the ground doesn't even compare to Jayden Daniels. Second best odds, Caleb Williams, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, with plus 225 odds to win the trophy for the second year in a row, completing 72% of his passes. Just 1% shy of Jayden Daniels, all kind of hovering around the same stat line there. 22 touchdowns, 1 interception. That is really freaking impressive. And, it's Jayden Daniels 19-2. Right there with Caleb Williams for 1,822 yards, 38 rush attempts, 124 yards, and 6 touchdowns on the ground. Still, about a quarter, maybe a little bit less than a quarter of the production that Jayden Daniels has put on the ground. Michael Penix Jr. currently has the best odds to win the Heisman Trophy. He's completing 75% of his passes, 16 touchdowns, and just shy of 2,000 yards, only 2 interceptions on the season, 8 rush attempts for only 9 yards, and 0 touchdowns on the ground. So when you look at it, when you look statistically at all of the passing stats, Jayden Daniels' passing stats are right up there with some of the best, the quarterbacks with the best odds to win the Heisman Trophy. He's right along the lines, hovering around 75% completion percentage. Right around that 20 passing touchdown stat line. Very few interceptions, has taken care of the football, only 2 interceptions on the year, which is right up there with Michael Penix's 2. Caleb Williams only 1, Bo Nix only 1. But what differentiates Jayden Daniels from the rest of the pack is what he can do in the run game. The Jayden Daniels presents a threat with his legs that no other quarterback in the country can say that they can do, can present the same threat that Jayden Daniels has. And I think that is very clear. It is clear as day when you just break down the numbers, when you break down the stats, that Jayden Daniels has done significantly more with his legs than any of his other quarterbacks in contention for the Heisman Trophy, while also maintaining very similar passing stats, where he's taking care of the football and he's airing the ball out. He's delivering the ball to his playmakers in the end zone. Jayden Daniels, I think, has the most impressive Heisman Trophy resume than any other quarterback in the country. But what's holding him back? We'll get into that coming up next. I am so excited to tell y'all about our new friends over at Prize Picks. I mean, Prize Picks is the most fun that I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. And all you have to do is just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats. For example, let's say Patrick Mahomes over 2 passing touchdowns, or let's say Derrick Henry over 80 rushing yards. And then you place your entry. I mean, Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts. Like, for example, today it is Taco Tuesday with Prize Picks. So each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more return and even more value for its users. PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. So I know that's one thing that I always get so annoyed with is you need your credit card information. So I got to get up, get my wallet, get my credit card, get all my credit card information there. Don't worry about that with PrizePicks. PrizePicks makes it easy if you use Apple Pay. And one of my favorite things about PrizePicks is they've got the reboot policy that entries stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. So, for NFL games or for college football top 25 matchups, if you pick a player and over or under for their stat line, and that player exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, maybe it's with injury, maybe that player's in concussion protocol, maybe that player got caught for targeting, that player is rebooted. Now, PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. That's one thing that I wish, if you're playing fantasy with some of your friends and you have one player that you're excited about, you have one player that you need a big game from, and they get injured, and it's like, no, no, no. I wish I still had the opportunity to go back and maybe get some insurance or maybe get some forgiveness there for something that's completely out of my control. Well, you can do that with Prize Picks. So go to prizepicks.com/locked on college and use the code locked on college for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is prizepicks.com/locked on college. Use code locked on college, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, I also want to tell you about Game Time. So you should not have to worry when you are buying tickets to your next big event. Actually, real life story, I am looking at tickets for an upcoming football game this weekend. And look, that's on me. Like I tell you all the time, I have a tendency to procrastinate with these kinds of things. I knew I wanted to go to this game all season long. And of course, I waited until the week of, when both of these teams have a lot more hype than they did going into the season. So, ticket prices have skyrocketed. They're very far and few between to try and find. So I went to Game Time. And Game Time, of course, had great prices for those tickets and also had ticket availability. So it was the perfect option for me. And it is also the perfect option for you to buy tickets for sporting events, for concerts, for comedy events, theater events, so on and so forth. The perfect option for all of those events near you. They've got great last minute deals, they've got all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. I mean, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Also, one thing that I do love about Game Time is you're not always guaranteed the view from your seat when you may buy tickets from another third party website. So let's say you buy the tickets and you're super excited about it, and you sit down, there's a big old pole right in front of you. Game Time gives you the in view look of what your seats are going to look like, what your in game or in concert experience might look like, so you know exactly what you are getting. I mean, people are obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. And Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour before it starts. So, procrastinators like me, this is the perfect option for you. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code locked on college, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. College football season is here, and Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Kickoff live every Friday. Locked On will go live every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. That's 10 a.m. Central on every single Locked On College YouTube channel, including Locked On LSU. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, conference rivalry games, and go in depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every single day. So find Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday at 10 a.m. Central on any Locked On College YouTube channel, including Locked On LSU. You will not want to miss it. All right, let's get back into it because I think Jayden Daniels has the strongest resume. If you're just looking at stats, the strongest resume for the Heisman Trophy of any other quarterback in college football. Now, I say quarterback, I could say player, but the top 7, top 8 odds right now for the Heisman Trophy are all quarterbacks. As we all know, Heisman Trophy tends to be a quarterback award. But just based off of what Jayden Daniels has done, the way that he has carried the team, the way that he is such a weapon in the passing game, and the fact that he is the best running quarterback in all of college football, I think cements him atop other quarterbacks in the league that are getting a lot of discussion, a lot of Heisman buzz. Michael Penix Jr. at Washington, Caleb Williams at USC, Dillon Gabriel at Oklahoma. But what could hold Jayden Daniels back? What I like to call disqualifications. And I think that the Heisman Trophy has some straight up dumb disqualifications. What we've seen in recent history is that 2+ losses disqualifies you from the college football playoff. I mean, never, ever has a 2-loss team in the entire existence of the college football playoff gotten a bid into the top 4. The Heisman Trophy also has evolved into similar quote unquote disqualifications that if you have 2 or more losses, then you are out of contention for the Heisman Trophy. I don't agree with that because I don't think that having a bad defense should disqualify an individual player from an award that is an individual award. I mean, if you want to call the Heisman Trophy the quarterback on the best team award, just call it that. I think the Heisman Trophy should go to the best player in college football. Sometimes the best player in college football, loses a game or two because the coach makes dumb decisions, a la Jimbo deciding not to go for it on 4th and 1 against Alabama. Sometimes you are a victim of not having great pieces around you, whether it's receivers or bad O-line or a bad defense, whatever it might be. Like, for example, and I'm not just saying this, I'm not just banging on the drum that the 2+ loss disqualification is bad just because it only affects my quarterback and only affects Jayden Daniels. I mean, I have said so many times that I am adamant that 2 of the 3 best players in college football last year did not get an invitation to New York City. That was Hendon Hooker and Bryce Young. Those 2 players I thought were the 2 best quarterbacks in college football. Hendon Hooker brought Tennessee back from the depths and the drudges of college football and finally made Tennessee relevant again. I mean, Hendon Hooker led the top offense in all of college football, and he didn't even get an invite to New York City. Bryce Young, week in and week out, carried that Alabama team. I mean, that Texas win last year, it was solely because of Bryce Young, because of his heroics and illustrating an expert drive at the end of the game to get into field goal range and to win that game. Bryce Young, I thought, against Tennessee, even in a loss, was the best player on the field. Bryce Young was the number 1 overall pick for a reason. Now, those 2 quarterbacks fell victim to not having great pieces around them or not having great defenses. Hendon Hooker unfortunately tore his ACL against South Carolina, and that was really enough to disqualify him from the Heisman Trophy. I don't think that that is fair because I think that the Heisman Trophy should go to the best player in college sports. The best player in college sports can't play defense. The best player in college sports can't do everything. The best player in college sports isn't calling plays or isn't making decisions to go for it on 4th and 1 or to, try a 2-point conversion or just kick it. I think that you should just reward the individual players for what they have done individually because it is an individual award. So the one thing that I think could hold Jayden Daniels back is the 2 losses, 2 or more losses. We're only halfway through the season. LSU's got 2 losses on their schedule. Look, they could win out. And I think that is probably what is going to have to happen in order for Jayden Daniels to get an invitation to New York City. Now, what does he still need to do? I think there's a few things that needs to go on your Heisman resume, and we will get into that coming up next. So there are a lot of things that are out of our control. Some things that we just simply have no say in and no control over whatsoever. But one thing that you should have control over and you should be empowered to do is taking care of yourself and preparing for the unexpected. That is why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. So the Jace case is a wonderful tool and supply to have in your home. It provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use, and it can give you a peace of mind that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. How many times have we been there? Whether you are out of town and you don't have access to your primary care physician, you don't have access to a pharmacist. Whether it was, during COVID when you couldn't go out, you couldn't just easily go to a doctor's office or to a minute clinic. Whatever the circumstances might be, it's not always easy to have access to antibiotics that you might need that could save your life or the life of a loved one. So Jace Medical makes sure that you have all of that medication in hand. So Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. So do not get caught unprepared. Have those antibiotics in your house so you can take care of yourself and your loved ones, and you don't have to rely on outside factors. Get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jace Medical by using my code locked on at checkout on jacemedical.com. That is JASE medical.com, code locked on, LOCKEDON. All right, well, thanks again for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. Statistically, Jayden Daniels is writing an incredibly strong case for himself to get invited to New York City and to be a Heisman Trophy finalist. Now, I do worry. The one thing that could hold him back, the one thing that has disqualified quarterbacks and players in the past from the Heisman Trophy conversation is having 2 losses on your schedule. LSU sitting at 4-2 currently. There could be another loss on the schedule coming up. I mean, with this defense, who freaking knows? It's probably more likely than not there's another loss on your schedule. So that could disqualify him. I don't agree with that personally because I think with Jayden Daniels, he's carrying this team. And I mean, I think that alone, that you are carrying a team in the SEC West with a gauntlet of an SEC schedule, a top 25 team, that's enough to get Heisman Trophy buzz. And you might say, well, okay, well, it's easy to say that he's carrying the football team. Well, let's talk about this. LSU so far, through 6 games, has put up 3,290 yards of offense total in the air, on the ground. Jayden Daniels, in the air and on the ground, has accounted for 2,391 of those yards. That is 73% of LSU's offense. Now, I understand, as a quarterback, you're going to account for a majority of the offense because you're the only one throwing the football. But I think that 73% of the offense is insane. 73% of the offense, and also given that Logan Diggs has toted the rock for over 100 yards in a majority of the games that he has been dressed for. 73% of the offense, that's massive. And Jayden Daniels, I think, continues to prove week in and week out that he's going to be that reliable piece for LSU. That Saturday was not some sort of, outlier of Jayden Daniels needing to carry the team 1 or 2 games a season. That he can do it every single week. But what's left to be done? Jayden Daniels, so far through 6 games, he's got the stats. You probably need to win out. Again, I don't agree with that notion that you have to be at least 11-1 to get an invitation to New York, but I think that LSU has to win out. I also think that he needs that marquee win. Dillon Gabriel, who now currently has the 4th best odds to win the Heisman Trophy at plus 1,200 odds, Dillon Gabriel, Oklahoma's quarterback, he has that marquee win. He beat Oklahoma. He plays for Oklahoma. He beat Texas. That is that's a strong case on your Heisman Trophy resume. Is big game against a good team, a top 5 ranked team in the country, and you're able to have a really good and really dominant performance against that team. That's your marquee win. I don't know if Michael Penix and Caleb Williams have that marquee win on their schedule quite yet. It's a long season, 6 games to go. Jayden Daniels doesn't have that yet. I mean, beating Missouri, beating Arkansas, beating Mississippi State, beating Grambling, like those aren't marquee wins. That's not one that you're like, whoa, did you see what Jayden Daniels did last night? Did you see who LSU beat last night? That's going to come over Alabama. I think. I'm looking at the rest of LSU's schedule, the way that Alabama has been playing. It's crazy for me to say that now because after week 1, week 2, I probably would have said, Bama. But no, they're looking a lot better. They went on the road at Texas A&M, a tough place to play against a really good A&M team, and they were able to get a win. I mean, Jalen Milroe had a career day. So I think that marquee win would have to come against Alabama. And that also plays into the winning out qualification. I also think one part of a Heisman checklist is your carry the team win, where to be a Heisman Trophy candidate, of course, you have to have those pieces around you. But I think every Heisman Trophy candidate or finalist has to have at least one game on the schedule where it's like, man, that was the quarterback game. That was the Caleb Williams game. That was the Bo Nix game. In this instance, that was the Jayden Daniels game. I don't want to, use recency bias here. I think that may have been against Missouri. I think that carry the team on your back win was on the road against an undefeated top 25 Missouri team. When Jayden Daniels had almost 400 total yards of offense, when he got injured, very visibly injured, got his ribs bruised up on a late hit in the end zone, and he still came out there and continued to make plays. That is a carry the team toughness, Heisman Trophy kind of performance. So I think that he's checked that box. That carry the team win, I think, was at Missouri. And he also needs to stay healthy. It has been shown that if you're out for at least a game, you're probably out of Heisman contention because you've got plenty of other candidates that are able to stay healthy for 12 games. Now, with the style of play that Jayden Daniels plays with, knock on literally all of the wood. That would concern me if Jayden Daniels can stay healthy all season long. He's got to protect himself a little bit more. Now, that's part of the reason what I think makes Jayden Daniels so special is that, he's willing to go one-on-one with a 280-pound linebacker and drill him right in the noggin if that means picking up a couple yards here and there. But it's okay to slide. It's okay to slide sometimes. You got to stay healthy. This team's not going to do very much. I understand wanting to put it all on the line for that down, that play, that game. But this team needs you. And that, I think, has been very obvious through 6 games. So that's what is left to be done. Can this LSU team do enough to win enough games to keep Jayden Daniels in the Heisman conversation? Because if LSU loses another game because of how bad the defense is, the defense will have wasted an elite Heisman Trophy caliber performance from Jayden Daniels. And that is a football travesty. So can the defense do just enough? Can the offense continue to produce at the level that it has been producing to just win enough games? You can go 10-2 on the season. I think that could be enough to get Jayden Daniels in New York. And honestly, if it's not, then let's stop calling it the Heisman Trophy and let's start calling it quarterback on the best team award. Because, man, I mean, Jayden Daniels, if you could give me the option of any quarterback in America right now, I don't know how many I would choose over Jayden Daniels. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up on tomorrow's edition of Locked On LSU, did we see a little bit of a defensive breakthrough? Are we seeing just the teeniest, tiniest, ittiest, bittiest light at the end of the tunnel? We'll get into that on tomorrow's edition of Locked On LSU.